All right, everybody, welcome to the Ocean Lab's special live broadcast straight from the super remote waters of San Ignacio Lagoon, Mexico. Today, we're embarking on a journey to discover the awe-inspiring world of one of the ocean's most majestic creatures, the gray whale. Special thanks to Mike Lever and the entire Nautilus team for making these programs possible. I'm Kylie, your moderator today on this exciting adventure, coming to you live from the pristine coast of Baja California Sur. Each year, this incredible lagoon serves as a sanctuary to the magnificent gray whales during their annual 12,000-mile round-trip migration between the Arctic and Mexico. Every winter, these gentle giants travel thousands of miles from their feeding grounds all the way down to the warm waters of Mexico, and here in the protected waters of the San Ignacio Lagoon, they find refuge to breed, give birth, and to nurture their young. We're going to meet up with some pretty incredible researchers today who are out on the lagoon as we speak to learn even more about gray whale biology, ecology, and learn what it looks like to be a marine biologist. If we're lucky, we might even get to see a few whales. Just a reminder, we are coming to you live from a very remote part of Mexico, so if the video looks a little bit lower quality than what you're used to on your TV shows, that's why. We welcome your questions. Just submit them down at the bottom by using the Q&A, and we will answer as many as we possibly can in the last 10 minutes. I'm going to turn it over now to our host, Dr. Chris Lowe of CSU Long Beach, and our resident marine mammal expert, Dr. Gwen Goodmanlowe. How's the lagoon today, guys?
Amazing. Oh, it is awesome. Yeah. So welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Chris Lowe. I'm a professor of marine biology and the director of the Shark Lab. I study sharks, but this is Dr. Gwen Goodmanlowe, my wife, the smarter part of our half, and she's a whale expert. And you hear that? That's the sound of a gray whale right next to the boat. So here we are in San Ignacio Lagoon. This is an amazing place. The whales come here for breeding, and I'm here to learn. So we've got a great crew with us today. Our naturalist on board is Scarlett.
Hola.
There she is.
Hi, guys.
And she's going to teach us. And our captain today is Adrian. Hola. Yeah. Hola. So we're here to learn about gray whales. Now, I know a lot about sharks. I've spent my entire career studying them, but I know nothing about whales.
These things happen.
So, but Dr. G is going to teach us about gray whales. So, Gwen, why are the whales here? Why do they use lagoon?
The whales are here to give birth mainly, and also to breed so that the next year there can be more babies. So they come down here, the moms are pregnant for about a year, and they come down here and the lagoon is nice and warm and shallow. They go to the back part of the lagoon where they have their baby gray whales.
So that's the maternity ward.
That's the maternity ward.
Exactly.
Yeah. Correct.
And then, but we have males and females out here, and they're looking to mate.
Yeah, they have some courtships. They're just trying to find the right one for them, and they'll do some mating when they're not having their babies, and then the next year the whole thing starts all over again.
Starts all over again. Yeah. But they've migrated how far to get here?
So they can migrate between 10 and 14,000 miles per year. So it's about 5,000 to 7,000 miles one way. So they go up to the Arctic to feed in the summer, and they get nice and fat and on a big blubber layer. And then they come back down here another 5,000 to 7,000 miles down to the lagoons, and they don't feed while they're here. So they actually lose all that fat every summer when they're, or winter when they're down here. They'll lose that fat that they've put on in the winter time.
So that's the biggest diet I've ever heard of.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah.
But that big blubber layer is like a packed lunch that they feed on for a long time.
Right.
But the mom, oh my God, right there. Check that out. We have a gray whale right by the boat. So there it is. And they actually come right up to the boat. Why do they do that, Gwen?
Well, that's a really good question. We don't actually know, but the theory is they like the interaction with people. They like to be touched and scratched, and they're really curious. Very
there. Look at that. Oh, so it just blew out. So what is that?
That is called the whale blow. So they just like us. They have to breathe oxygen, and they have to get rid of the carbon dioxide in their lungs. So when they come to the surface, they're getting rid of that carbon dioxide, and they're taking in a big breath of air, and then they can go under the water again.
So what now?
That's a spout.
So whales are mammals.
They are mammals.
So what makes them mammals like us?
So there are a couple things that make them mammals. One thing is that they have to breathe air. Another thing is that at some stage of their life, they have fur or hair. And with the whales, it's when they're being developed inside the mom. They also have a very big brain, very intelligent brain. And they have what we call internal fertilization, and they give birth to live young.
So I hear they give birth to big babies.
They give birth to really big babies. Their babies are about 15 feet long and 2,000 pounds. So that's
a big baby.
That's like as big as a car, bigger than a car, right?
But then they're in this lagoon and they're not eating. Nobody's eating except the babies.
The babies are eating from their moms.
And the moms are giving them milk.
Their moms are giving them really, really rich milk, the richest milk you can think of.
So how much milk does a baby drink a day?
Well, 80 gallons.
80 gallons.
Something like that. Yeah. And they put on 9 pounds per hour. The babies can increase their weight by 9 pounds per hour.
That's incredible.
That is incredible.
So that must be really good milk.
That's really good milk. That is not some low fat milk that you're buying at the store. I'll tell you that.
No. So that's probably like eating 40 Big Macs in an hour.
Yes.
That's crazy the number of calories. So the purpose is to get the babies big fast.
Yes.
Why?
Well, they really only have a few months here, maybe 3 months here, and then they have to migrate back up to the Arctic in order to do their feeding, right? And so the moms really have to get those babies nice and big and fat before they start that northward migration, because it's a really long journey and it takes a lot of energy. Remember, the babies and the moms really aren't feeding on the way, so they have to have that energy kind of stored up before they can go. It's like eating a really big meal before you exercise. Well, kind of, so that you have that energy while you're exercising.
So I'm touching the water right now, and it's kind of cool.
Chilly.
So if we were to stay in this water for an hour, we would
die.
We would probably go into hypothermia, right?
We would die.
We'd
Yeah.
get cold. And
Right there.
so they're always they're everywhere. We see folks. Look at that right there. That is so cool.
That's so exciting.
All right, so that back part, what's that called?
That's called a tail fluke.
The fluke.
Yeah, the tail fluke. And they use that to propel through the water, because they don't have, they don't have arms and legs. So they use that tail fluke to propel through the water.
So now whales actually evolved from animals that lived on land.
They did.
So what animals did they evolve from?
They actually evolved from an animal that was similar to a hippopotamus. And they started out as little small hippopotami that came into the
Here we go.
into the water.
There's the
It's
tail.
real small.
Wow, look at the size of that thing.
Yeah.
That's longer than me. That feels longer than me.
It's bigger than you. Yeah.
So
So they started doing that about 400 million years ago, and then about 34 million years ago, the whales evolved. And then only about 4.5 million years ago did they get big. So the first whales were kind of like the size of dolphins, really. They were like small land animals that eventually came into the land, and they lost their limbs, and they became flippers, and they lost their legs, and those didn't become anything. But they always kept their lungs. So remember, they came from land breathers, land animals. So they always had lungs, and the lungs stayed there. But then about 4.5 million years ago, they actually started getting really big. That coincided with an ice age and the boom of plankton in the ocean. And the plankton fed small animals, which then fed larger animals and larger animals. And that's when the whales actually got to be like the big whales that they are now.
But it's also, you can stay warmer if you're big.
You can stay warmer if you're big. That is correct.
And
they also have to have blubber.
So what is blubber?
So blubber is a kind of a type of fat. It's a little bit different from fat. It has a lot of fat cells in it, but it also has a lot more blood vessels that feed that blubber layer, and it's very thick, and it helps keep the animals warm.
So it sounds like blubber does two things. It's an insulator,
yeah,
keep them warm, but it's also a food source.
Yes, but it also does three things.
Oh, it says three things.
Yes, it helps them come to the surface to breathe, remember?
Buoyancy.
Because they.
Oh, right there. Check that out.
The wheels right by the boat. Just check that. Oh, there's another one. It's so cool. This one really likes this. It's the same whale. Scarlett says it's the same whale. So Scarlett, if you do you recognize for
this
Scarlett?
Oh, guys, this is the snout.
Oh, right here.
So some of them they broke.
Oh, they rubbed the barnacle.
Oh, they rub the
So-
barnacles off.
so-
Yeah.
So Gwen, why do they have barnacles on them?
Well, that's a really interesting thing. So it's kind of a,
It's pushing the
it's
boat.
pushing the boat. It's pushing the boat.
Who needs an outboard when you've got a whale?
Exactly. So the barnacles are, they're kind of they used to call them parasites, but true parasites are things that feed off the host. And these don't harm the whale at all. So they're not really true parasites, but that's what they call
So
them.
they're hitchhikers.
They're hitchhikers. So they live on the whale and it allows them to feed while they're feed on the plankton that's in the ocean. And they're just like attached to the whale and they live there the whole lives.
So the barnacles can also tell us something about how old they are.
They can. So the barnacles take about a year to become full size. And when the barnacles are full size, they're about an inch or inch and a half wide. And so when we see whales that have barnacles that are an inch wide, we know that the whale is at least a year old.
So you can tell a baby
You can tell a baby
because it's his nipper.
it does not have barnacles. So the barnacles are floating, the baby barnacles are floating around in the ocean. And then they have to, when they get to a certain age in the barnacle life stage, they have to settle down on the whale or on something like a boat. But in this case, these are specialized barnacles that only live on these whales. So they'll settle down on the whale. So you can tell a newborn baby gray whale calf, not just by the size, but also by the fact that it's completely smooth and it has no barnacles on it.
That
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
cool. Now, do those things itch? Do they give them the itchies?
We don't really know, but they do rub them off. So maybe potentially, yeah. And you can see on this one that just went by, if you look really closely, you could see a little scar on the whale where the barnacle had been and it's now missing. You can see the imprint from the barnacle on the whale's body. So
Maybe the boats act like scratching posts.
Yeah,
They can help
probably, yeah.
knock some
Yeah.
barnacles off.
yeah. And then the other hitchhiker are called whale lice, which are not really like lice that we think of, when kids get them in their hair, but they're actually a little animal that lives in the ocean that's similar to a tiny little crab. And they actually are great for the whale because what they do is they'll pick off the dead skin and they'll kind of feed on the edges of an infection. So they actually help the whale a lot by kind of cleaning off that dead skin.
Actually, we might get to see some right now.
Yeah. Can we get close, Dan?
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go over closer. Oh, right. Oh, it's on this side again. Sorry, we have to switch sides.
Oh, she's moving. She's moving. She's coming back around. She's scratching off barnacles right now.
Yeah, wow.
So the reason why they have the blubber is here, the water is like maybe 70 degrees,
Yes.
but they're going to migrate all the way to Alaska. And the water there is like 42 degrees.
Right. But the thing is, even 70-degree water is not warm because their body temperature is very similar to our body temperature. So, for instance, at first, if we went in 70-degree water, we might think, oh, that's not too cold. But if you're in there for more than 10 minutes, you start to get really cold, right? So even 80-degree water. So the water temperature, if it's not the same as our body temperature, we will lose heat. So yeah, this water temperature may be 70 degrees, but the whale still uses a lot of its body heat. And it can't do that because whales never go on land. So they're always in the water.
So our body temperature is 98.6
That's
normally, unless
Yes.
we have a fever, it's
Yeah.
98.6. What's a whale's body temperature?
It's about the same as ours. So
Is it
they
really?
think it's about 98 to 100. So somewhere around there. Yeah,
So like all mammals, they're
Yes.
warm-blooded.
they are warm.
There we go.
There's a tail right there. It's waving at us.
Oh, he's coming in.
Oh, no, that's not tail flipper. Sorry, that's the
That's a-
pectoral
That's a
flipper.
pectoral flipper.
Pectoral flipper. My
Look at the
bad.
barnacles. Look at the barnacles.
You can see the
Wow.
barnacles. You can't see the whale lice from here, but all the yellow
But we just saw the blowhole, and the blowhole is like what for us?
Blowhole is our nostrils, but it's on the top of their head. Beautiful. And those coloration, the markings that they have are all, each individual with different coloration patterns. So they can actually identify whales by these patterns of white and gray on their bodies.
Well, so they have all these different colored markings, and they're like facial features, like for us. So everybody looks different.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, researchers are actually using these to identify and track the whales. So, Scarlett, how do you guys typically identify whales?
How easily?
Yeah.
For some marks, some like we call like beauty marks that they have, like our footprint, or even behaviors. Like this one. This one is the same whale that is just surrounded by us. It's still there, guys. So yeah, that's
They're
how we
very-
identify
they're-
them.
So friendly. Do you get to recognize some of the whales? Like
Some
do you
of them
recognize-
whales, yes, some of the whales, but the ones that we think they present curious behaviors are some individuals because they are as humans. We have some introverts and some extroverts. This one is definitely a curious one.
So in other species and other animals, like sharks,
Yep.
seals, sea lions, things like that, they put an external tag on it and they identify it that way, but we don't do that with the gray whales. So the gray whales, we don't need to really do that because they have such distinctive patterns, kind of like humpback whales do, that they can actually tell individuals from their coloration pattern, and they mark that down, and then they can see that that helps them with determining population numbers, because they will, if they know that each of these are individual, whales, and then they see them pass by, they kind of get an idea of what the population might be for that year.
So we just got blowed on by a whale, and it feels like salt water, but it's more than just salt water,
It's
right?
more than salt water.
Not snot.
It's not snot.
It's not snot.
Well, but it could, I mean, you could
Everybody
call
knows
it
it's
snot.
snot,
Yeah,
sure.
call it whale snot. So the blow is actually when they're breathing out just like us. So there's a little bit of warm air in there, carbon dioxide, but when it blows, it's because it's so forceful, it's actually picking up mucus and oil that's on the whale's skin, because the blowhole's on the top of the head. So as it blows out, it picks up some of that oil and mucus. So it actually kind of is
Okay,
whale
all right,
snot.
all
We
right.
call it whale snot.
So my colleagues that use cool technology like us have come up with something they call the snot bot,
That's right. Yeah.
which is a drone. And what they actually do is they run the drone down close to the whale. When it exhales, they collect some of that.
That's
They
right.
can actually detect hormones.
Oh, well,
There's two whales
whales.
by the boat.
Fantastic.
Whoa, check that out. Check that out.
Oh, this one's coming up real close. See if we can touch it. Yeah, so not only can they get hormone levels from the snot bot, but they've done a big study, especially with humpbacks, where they've characterized the entire bacteria biome.
Oh,
And that's really exciting.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not bad bacteria. So there's good bacteria and bad bacteria. So it's not like they have a cold or an infection in their sinuses, but they've been able to characterize this whole bacterial community that is, on the whales, and they
Right.
can actually determine population size from that.
and I also thought they were able to measure hormones like cortisol,
They are.
which is
Yeah.
a stress hormone.
Right.
And that's really important because the question is, are the whales getting more stressed out?
Right.
So we know our planet is warming. Climate change is affecting the planet. It's causing the ocean to get warmer and warmer. How's that going to affect whales that come here to use this lagoon?
Well, that's a really good question. Look at the whale right there. We got to turn around. It's so exciting. We can't just be on camera all the time.
I
We have to
know,
look
I
at the
know,
whales
I
too,
know.
right?
Look at the fluke.
Right there. Look at the fluke.
Wow.
See the mark?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. So you can really see the pattern, right, that you can identify the whale from. But so, yeah, getting back to your question, Chris. So climate change is having a dramatic effect on especially the gray whale population. In fact, they think that's the #1 driver of the population decline right now. And that's because as the climate warms, there's not as much sea ice in the Arctic. And without the sea ice, you're getting less food for their food. So they primarily feed on little tiny things called amphipods and sometimes krill. And those amphipods and krill are feeding on plankton. And without the sea ice, we're having less plankton, less amphipods, less krill, less tube worms. And so gray whales are actually starving. They're not getting as much food. And then what happens is they often will try to eat things that are not what they should be eating, like plastic. So sometimes we find plastic in their stomachs when they die. So that's the number one driver of the population decline. But there's also other things like getting caught in fishing nets. And the more people we have on the planet, the more fishing we're doing, because we need to feed people, right? And so they're getting caught in fishing nets. Whale watching can be, in certain areas, can be stressful. And in the Baja lagoons, they're very regulated here, which is amazing. So the boats are only allowed to be on the whale for a certain amount of time, certain time periods of the day, and actually certain areas of the lagoon. So they're not really allowed to be in the back part of the lagoon where the moms and babies are.
Right there. It's just
But in other parts of the world, with other whales, the regulations are not well enforced. And so boats will then chase the whales or get too close to the whales. And that can actually be stressful. All those things affect whale populations and whale numbers, because with higher stress, they won't reproduce, they won't have the babies. Yeah.
So humans have affected whales in many ways. Back more 150 years ago, we used to hunt these whales, even right here in this lagoon.
Exactly. Yes. So these whales were known as devilfish because they did not like to be hunted, and they would attack the whalers that were hunting. And in fact, I just read recently that when the first whalers came here, they actually didn't even like these whales because they didn't have high quality blubber.
They were already losing weight.
Maybe,
On
yeah.
the migration
And
to get
the whale bone, which is the baleen, was of high quality. So they only hunted it for about 10 years, then they gave up. And then scamming started doing it again. And then probably other whales, like the sperm whale, were already on the decline. So they needed whatever.
Right. But even though this was lower quality, they were willing to take it.
They were willing to take it, and then they hunted them almost to extinction until they were protected in 1949.
Look at that.
Woo.
So the eye is right. The eye is right near the mouth.
The eye is right above the mouth, but that funny thing you just saw, those are the blowholes, which are really, as we said, our nostrils, right? But they're located on the top of their head. And the reason why they're there is so that when the whale comes up, especially when it's migrating or swimming, it doesn't have to put its whole head out of the water like a dog would have to be like this. Oh, I need a breath, or we need. So they just kind of do this, and the nostrils really are right on the top of their head, so they don't have to lift their whole head out of the water. Oh yeah,
Look at that
right there.
Oh, dolphins!
Dolphins, nice.
Wow.
This one really loves us.
Yeah.
I think this one has a crush on Scarlet.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I know we have a list of questions, but we do have kind of a relevant question right now. Somebody in Boston wants to know if a whale has ever tipped the boat over.
So
That's a good question for Adrian.
Scarlett and Adrian.
Scarlet.
Scarlett, has a whale ever tipped a boat over?
No, not these ones.
No.
These are friendly.
These ones, they are careful. They
Yeah.
are couple. They can be curious, and that's it. But not really.
Okay.
It's more. There's more chances that people want to swim with them.
Yes,
Not them.
yes.
Yes.
But in the olden days, whales did tip the boats over because they were not happy with the harpooners.
Because they defend
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Really.
They would lift the boats out of the water, and they were But
Yes.
again, they were defending themselves because they were
Correct.
being hunted, right?
That's why they were called like the devilfish.
Devil-
Ooh, look guys.
Oh, nice.
Ew.
Very nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So we have a question from Jamal, who's 14, and he's from Orlando. And his question is, how many species of whales are there? And which is the biggest?
Wow. Okay. So there's about 89 species of whales, and they're in two groups. So there's the whales and dolphins that have teeth like us, and then there are the baleen whales, and the gray whale is a baleen whale. And baleen is a type of protein that's very similar to our fingernails, and it hangs down from the upper jaw, and they filter water. It's like making spaghetti and putting the spaghetti in the thing in the sink so that you can drain the water out. That's what baleen does for the whale. So there's 16 species of baleen whale. And the largest baleen whale is the blue whale, and that can be over 100 feet long and very many tons, 400,000 pounds or 450,000 pounds. And the largest toothed whale is the sperm whale.
but that's the blue whale is the biggest animal on the planet right now.
Blue whales, well, ever.
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 Is it bigger than the dinosaurs?
Way bigger than any dinosaur that ever lived. And there's a reason for that.
Okay, what's the reason?
The reason is that dinosaurs lived on land with gravity. And so you can only get to have a body that's so big when you're on land, because then you can't walk and you can't eat, you can't do anything. But since the whales live in the ocean and the water is supported, they can get much, much larger.
God,
than
that makes so much sense. So when I'm in the water, I feel so relaxed. It's floating.
That's right. Yes,
Gravity.
so relax.
Gravity kind of sucks sometimes. Okay, so here's another question.
Especially as you get old. Sorry.
Especially when we get old. So here's a question from DJ Harley Quinn. She's 8 and from Charlotte. And her question is, do whales have feelings? And if so, do they get sad?
Yes. So whales and dolphins are known to have feelings. We have to turn around.
Oh, yeah,
There's
yeah.
one
Okay,
that's coming right
I
back.
got some feelings right now.
Yeah.
Double
It's
whale.
a double. Nice.
Whoa, look at that.
Look at that.
Somebody's getting wet.
Can you really see the barnacle?
Wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, Stephanie's petting.
Stephanie has gotten to pet a whale, which is so exciting.
I know. So what do they feel like? Very soft. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, Stephanie's gonna get another pet. Here we go. Oh, look at that.
Nice.
Oh, sorry, our camera has gone crazy. Now we're back.
Oh,
Here we go. Here we go. Wow, they're
They're
just
so
spending
curious.
so much time.
So
So-
intelligent.
So
Yeah.
Gwen,
Yeah.
DJ Harley Quinn's question.
Oh, I'm
Feel-
sorry, I forgot. Oh, feelings. Yes. Yes, they have feelings. They feel, well, we actually don't know exactly what feelings they are, but they are very intelligent mammals. And so they have feelings similar to ours. We know they have fear, right? When the harpooners came. We don't know if they have love, but we know that there's bonding. So there's feelings for bonding. There's curiosity as well.
And they're very social.
They're very social. Yeah, they can be social with each other and others. But we do know, for instance, in dolphins, which are closely related, that there's certain dolphin species of moms that when their calf dies, they will not leave that dead calf and they will swim with that calf for days and days. Yeah. So, and they're close related to whales. So we haven't really seen that in many whale species, not gray whales, but yes, they definitely have feelings.
All right, so here's another question from DJ Johnson, who's 9 and in Nashville. And DJ Johnson wants to know, do whales snore? They
Do
must
whales
sleep.
snore? Yes, they do. They sleep at the surface. They call it logging. And that's a good question about snoring. So, I'm not sure.
Wait, do I snore?
Sometimes you
Oh,
snore.
okay.
Yeah. So snoring typically is when your nose is plugged, like
Right.
you have allergies or you have a cold, and they don't get colds. They don't have sinus problems. And so do they make sounds when they're sleeping? Yes. But snoring, not so
Maybe not.
much. Yeah.
So how do they sleep? This
How
is
do they
another
sleep?
question from Elia.
Okay.
And she's 11 from Memphis. Do they sleep? And when they're sleeping, how do they breathe?
That's a great question. So whales, remember, have to breathe air. So they have to be at the surface to sleep. And they've done studies in dolphins. And what they found is the dolphins will shut half of their brain down and then they switch it. So half of their brain sleeps. The other half is always alert in case there's danger. And then it swaps back and forth. And so they think that whales probably do the same thing. They switch the right half and the left half of the brain back and forth. But so there's always, I mean, when we sleep, we can still breathe. We don't consciously breathe when we're sleeping. It's the same thing with them, but they have to have some kind of conscious thing awake so that they're floating at the surface.
Right.
And if they go under the surface, like we don't close our nostrils, right? So, yeah. So they
Okay.
do sleep. Yeah.
So Henry, who's 5 from Nashville, has a really important question.
Uh-oh.
How do whales go to the bathroom?
Oh my. Okay. So that's a great question. So whales poop just like us. So
Everybody
everybody
poops.
poops. There's a book about it. So they relieve themselves as they are swimming, and it just comes out and then goes out into the ocean. And they can actually follow each other with that because
Really?
they can sense those chemical cues that are in the whale poop. Yeah. Yeah. But it's more liquid. It's not like ours.
Okay, so here's a question from Sarah, who's 7, and she's from Charlotte. And her question is, do whales have friends?
Do whales have friends? So it depends on the species of whale. So, for example, killer whales stay with their family for life. They live with their mom, their grandmother, and they're together with siblings for their life. So those siblings are their friends. Gray whales don't do that. So gray whales the calves live with their moms for about 7 to 8 months, and then they're on their own. And when they're in feeding groups, they might be together, but they don't really like stay together as friends. So that's what we know so far.
Okay, so there's a question from the staff at Nashville Hospital, and they want to know February's heart month. So what can you tell us about whale hearts?
Whale hearts are enormous. Oh, yeah.
Gwen, here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can I?
oh, there's oh,
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at that.
yeah.
Rubber.
Yes. Oh, look at the baleen. Did you see the baleen? Oh, smiled at us. It smiled at us. You can really see the baleen plants and plates coming down. It's got snotted. Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful.
So
Okay, so whale hearts. So
whale hearts.
whale
How
hearts
big do they get?
are really big. So the blue whale heart gets to be about 400 pounds, which, you know, that's big. That's like
That's a
two,
golf cart.
that's a golf cart size. And our heart, for example, is only fist size, so
Okay.
much smaller. But gray whale hearts are about 205 pounds.
Oh, that's all.
So that's all. So a little more than half the size of a heart. But here's the point. So blue whales gallons of blood every time the heart beats.
Per beat.
Per beat, 60 gallons. So just think of a gallon-sized jug of milk, 60 of those every time the heart beats. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So when you and I are calm,
Yeah.
our heart rate's between 64 and maybe 70 beats a minute.
okay.
What's whale's heartbeat rate?
It's about the same.
Is
Yeah,
it?
It's about the same. And so, and when our heart beats, we're only beating 2.5 ounces of blood
That's it.
versus 60 gallons of blood. Yeah.
But that
So-
blood is really important because some whales can dive really deep.
Yes.
So what's the deepest diving whale?
The deepest diving whale is the sperm whale. There's also the Cuvier's beaked whale, and they can both dive down to about almost 10,000 feet. Sperm whales can stay down for about an hour. So they're holding their breath for an entire hour. And there's special adaptations for that. So the way that we get oxygen in our body is it attaches to something called hemoglobin that's in our blood. And it also attaches to something called myoglobin in our muscle. So whales and all the deep divers have huge volumes of blood to keep that oxygen, and also bigger muscles and more myoglobin that attaches that oxygen. And therefore, when they hold their breath, they don't feel like,
Look at. Oh, Scarlett got the best pet. Hey,
my friend.
They love you.
Kiss you, Scarlett. Choose your.
You guys, the whole body. Wow.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
here's the other side.
So, Kylie, do we have any other questions? I'm sure there's questions coming in.
We do, and I think this might be a fun little ending question. We have another question.
Okay.
Austin. If you guys had to turn into a whale, what type of whale would you become and why?
Oh my.
Okay, Gwen.
That's a tough one. I'm not sure. Well, I think it would probably be a gray whale, because I just feel like, you know, they're so curious, and they just seem so, you know, fun, and they're beautiful, and, you know, they don't have to eat meat. I like that they don't have to eat meat. They're plankton feeders, so, or, you know, they're feeding on things in the bottom. So yeah. I would
Well,
have to say gray whale.
you know, I would probably be an orca.
Wish you would.
I know they're not technically a whale, they're a dolphin. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so cool.
They're like little puppy dogs.
They are. So yeah, I would be an orca. And orca are they're the true top predator in the ocean. They're the only animal we know that can kill an adult white shark. And I love white sharks. So
Yeah.
I would have to be an orca.
Yeah, well, but also
Oh,
Orcas are actually the largest dolphin.
dolphin. I
Right,
know.
so, you know, there's that
There,
too.
that's
Yeah, yeah. Do you have any more questions for us?
That's all the questions I have from my end.
Okay.
If anyone else has any more questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A before we finish up. Otherwise, Gwen and Chris, you got any more information to tell us?
Sure. So right now, these whales are just hanging out. It is beautiful out here. Everywhere we look, we see flows and spy hops. In fact, we just saw a cool spy hop a minute ago.
And breaches.
And breaches.
You know, where they jump out of the water and they make a
Okay,
huge splash.
I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Why do they breach? Why do they jump?
Well, the theory is that they are playing and they might be communicating with the splashes in the water. We don't really know, you know, we can't really ask them.
So maybe they're just jumping for joy.
Maybe they're jumping for joy. They do see a lot of juveniles doing it, so they think it might just be, you know, crazy exercise that young,
Play.
that young whales like to do. So
Very cool.
yeah.
See, so kids aren't that different from baby whales.
No.
Yeah.
They're not. Yeah. Spy hopping.
Spy hopping.
Yes.
Yeah. Why do they do that?
Spy
Are they
hopping?
picking on us?
I think they're trying to find out where everybody is. So they do that so they can see, you know, above the water. So they do that when they're migrating to navigate to see the land,
Okay.
but they probably also do it to see where other whales are and actually where the boats are, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It makes sense. Makes sense. It gives you a low to the water bird's eye view.
Yes, it does.
Oh, here we go. We got it
Here it
coming
comes
right by the
in.
boat again.
Okay, so we've been calling this whale a she, but actually we don't really know.
Exactly. It's hard to tell the difference, right?
Yeah, it's so hard to tell the difference. It's you really have to be able to see the underside of the whale
Got
to tell the difference. And so we just have been calling this one a she, but really it would be more.
Yeah, it's
would be
probably more
accurate.
appropriate.
It
until we
would be a male.
Yeah,
it would be a
yeah.
male. You can tell by size, but they have to be right next to each other because in this species, the females are actually a little bit larger than the males, but because you know, we don't have all of them lined up, it would be difficult to tell just by size. Yeah.
This lagoon is absolutely amazing. So and it's got to be, even though they're not feeding here, a lot of other things are using this lagoon as a home, right? As
Yeah,
a nursery. And we even
definitely.
think baby white sharks hang out here, especially in the winter because the water's nice and warm and there's lots of things for baby white sharks to eat. Like cigarette. Sorry, I had to throw some shark stuff in.
Hey now.
Can't help it. Can't help it.
We
Can't all just be about whales.
Yes, it can. We also know that in the back lagoon, there's lots of stingrays and, you know, seabirds and you know, small fish and large fish. So there's lots of things that use the lagoon.
Wow, that. Oh, they're right next to each other. Very cool.
There might be some courtship going on.
So what is
Ah.
courtship?
So courtship is when the males and the females get together and because remember, they one of the main goals of being down here, besides the moms giving birth, is for the males to mate with the females. So might be happening.
So there's a little dating.
There's a
that
little
occurs here.
dating going on.
Okay.
Yes.
And they're just trying, who are you? Where have
Yeah.
you been? And
Guess what? The females, they have it really going on because they don't just stay with one male whale for the whole
okay.
season. Oh no, they like to play the field. So
okay. So they might go on multiple dates.
they'll go on multiple dates and kind of determine who is going to be the best father
Okay.
and have the best cat.
Now they only give birth to one baby, right?
One baby a
One
year,
baby.
right?
Okay,
And then
yeah.
and they don't give birth every year, so
Oh, so
that's
they
one of
do
the
great.
reasons why the population, it's hard to come back, is because they really only have a calf every 2 to 3 years, actually. So so they don't mate because once if they come down here and give birth and they have a baby, they are not going to be mating. So they have to go back up to the Arctic and then come back down, and then maybe the next year. Wow. Look at those blowholes. That is spectacular.
So, you know, I think whenever I'm in a place like this, I look around and I imagine what would it have been like to be here 100 years ago? And we know that these whales were hunted to almost the verge of extinction. And here, everywhere we look, we see gray whales. So to me, it's exciting. And it's something that I think in Mexico, they've done a great job of protecting the gray whales because they're part-time Mexican residents, part-time US residents, part-time Canadian residents. They don't know where borders are. They're constantly swimming along these areas. And it's because everybody got together to try to protect them that they're coming back. So if you were to look at these things underwater, it's so cool to see them. They move so smoothly. You know, they're kind of interacting with each other. They're like underwater ballet dancers. They seem so graceful in the water. But on land, when they strand, they're not so graceful. Why do they strand sometimes?
Well, that's a really, really good question, actually. A lot of times they think it's because they they might have an infection, or there's certain species that tend to strand more often than others. But they don't really know why they strand. But when they do necropsies, which is kind of an autopsy, they will usually find something wrong with like the leader of the pack, and they all seem to strand. And that's why when whales have stranded and people are trying to pull them back into the ocean, well, first of all, they're so heavy, it's really hard to do that. But a lot of times the whales will just go to the next beach and strand again because there's something going on that they're not feeling well, you know, really, like seriously not feeling well. And, you know, and they strand, but only certain species do that. We don't see that in gray whales that much unless they're really sick.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, there are all things that we can do to keep the ocean healthy, right? So being more careful about our trash. Obviously, plastic in these whales is a problem, right? You know, we're making the planet warmer by a lot of things we can do. So we can do less, but carbon dioxide in the air, drive our cars less, use less fossil fuels. And the whales are benefiting from that. Oh, look at that. Now they're getting shown. So Kylie, any last questions?
Yeah, we got one last question from Boston. Messiah in Boston wants to know, how long do gray whales live for?
Oh, that's one we forgot.
That's a great question. So gray whales can live between about 55 to 70 years old on average, but they did find one that they did a necropsy on that was 80 years old. So we'll say somewhere around 50, 60 years old.
Wow, so that's pretty old.
That's pretty old.
And then they've made that migration between here and there like 79 times, something like that.
They don't always migrate every year, but
Okay.
So we'll say maybe they've migrated 50 times.
So if you do the math on that number of trips,
that's a lot of
that
miles.
logged a lot of
A
miles.
lot of miles. They need some new tires on
Yeah,
that,
I
baby.
would say. That is just truly amazing to think that animals are swimming along almost the entire west coast of North and Central America to make these migrations. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
How do they do it? How do they navigate?
They just know how. They learn it from their moms, and they follow their moms the first year, and then they seem to know how to do it the next year. But they do follow the coast rather than they're not out in the middle of the ocean. So,
but they do kind of talk to each other while they're doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they can help each other if they get lost.
A little bit, yeah.
Weather changing.
Yeah.
So, the fog is rolling in.
It's rolling in.
Yeah. So the fog here, the last few days it's been beautiful, sunny, and now the fog's rolling in. And that's usually because the air temperature is different from the water temperature, and that creates moisture in the air. So as the sun gets higher and it warms up, this fog will start to burn off. But right now, here we are early in the morning.
Kind of eerie because we're in the middle of a bay. We can't see land anywhere around us. There's whales everywhere. And we don't know. But our captain,
Yep. Thank goodness.
Somebody knows where we're going.
All right, Kylie, any last questions?
I think that's it.
All
right. I think it's time to wrap up. Hey, folks, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great. You have wonderful questions, and hopefully you've learned something about gray whales. I know I did. Here's Captain Adrian. Yeah, he's taking us right to the whales. And our guide, Scarlett, there she is.
Yeah.
And then our trusty troop of Steve, Stephanie, and Marty here helping us out.
Getting all the great shots.
And of course, we've got our fearless leader, Dave Cameraman. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. And be happy and be healthy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right, bye to the Panga crew. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. We hope you had a good time seeing a ton of whales. That was an awesome turnout. Feel free to send in any other questions that you think of after the show to our email that's on our webinar registration. We'll do our best to answer them for you. We'll also be sharing some educational material after the show so that you can learn even more about gray whales. Bye for now.